Hello, and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and I'm joined by friend of the show, Will Katz, award-winning director Brian Redondo, and Savon Jones, aka Captain Vonnie. As many of you know, Mike lives in New Orleans and has been bouncing around during and after Hurricane Ida, so he isn't able to join us on today's show. He's safe and wish him all the best. Can't wait till you're back, buddy. This is episode 38, and we're getting a non-spoilers look at the newest Marvel film, Shang Chi, and we'll do a lightly spoiled breakdown of another Marvel project, What If? I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund. So, like I said, we got Will here, ostensibly filling in for Mike, but really just he's his own man. He's out there on the West Coast living, best coast, West Coast. Will, can you add some highlights for yourself? Like, how do you know Mike? I mean, he's the one that kind of put us in touch with you. You've obviously been listening to the show. We sometimes interact on the Instagrams. What are your particular nerd interests?
Wait, just to interrupt for a second right there, so our audience has a clear picture. None of us know who this guy is. He just showed up on our video chat. I'm like, who's this guy in a silk robe right now? So Will, tell us.
Yeah, great to be on the pod. I met Mike not by choice. We were randomly assigned.
Does anybody meet Mike by choice?
Mike meets you.
Yeah, Mike meets you. We met because we were randomly assigned as roommates our first year of college, and we've been, kicking it ever since.
So how he snores then. That's
and more importantly, he knows how I snore.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
do you guys snore in unison ever? I guess you'd never know.
Harmonics,
No, I would always be the one passed out. So he's definitely seen more of me asleep than I've seen of him. But
so he's Sleepy Boy Junior. You're Sleepy Boy Senior.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely. I'm the big one.
Big spoon.
But yeah,
there's only one bed in those college dorms.
Well, it's one bed and they cut it in half, right, and then put them on opposite sides of the room.
But you guys put them back together. Very cute.
Yeah.
Very cute.
Why not? And so you're into games a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I've been gaming for well over 20 years, but mostly sports stuff, like FIFA, Madden 2K. However, I'm also super into the open world RPGs, a la sort of Skyrim, Witcher, Red Dead, etc. Just played through the Mass Effect conglomerate that they released in just 1, 2, and 3, bam, 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 all bundled up. That was so lovely. I'm also
you just
a law
got
student,
some smiles from Savon.
Yeah, definitely Savon's type of games.
Mass Effect was excellent.
And you're a law student?
Yeah, which is nerdy, but not interesting.
Are you at UCLA?
I am at UCLA. I've got another
Nice.
year, and then, presumably I'll be a lawyer somewhere doing something.
All right, well, let's get it started. So Shang Chi just dropped a couple days ago, and it's by all accounts had mostly great word of mouth. I think it's been surprising to a lot of people. Brian, I believe you're the only one on the show that's seen it. Savon, you haven't seen it, right?
No, I didn't go to any theaters yet.
Will, have you seen it?
No, I have a friend who went to the premiere out here recently.
Ooh,
and said it was
LA
great,
stuff.
But, I haven't seen it.
All right, so Brian, give us a taste. Should we see it? Should we not? And, as an Asian American, will our Asian American listeners have a different take from non-Asian Americans, or is it pretty much the same experience for everybody?
Well, yeah. So this is very interesting. One, that I'm the only one in this group that's seen it. I don't think Mike has seen it either. So that
Mike's been a little bit on the
Doubtful.
Yeah. So there, it's an interesting time, right? Like we got this whole Delta variant, but we got a new Marvel movie, but it's also a character that nobody has heard of before. So it's a lot of interesting things in this dynamic. And for listeners of the show, if you remember, Wes and I went into a little bit in depth as to why we were very skeptical about this Shang Chi movie when it was first announced. You know, both of us being, Asian American guys, the idea of Marvel's first Asian American superhero being a kung fu master doesn't strike us as the most interesting way to go about their diversity play. I mean, come on, like if you've like any Asian guy that has been called Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee at some point in their lives, probably
No,
multiple
both.
times,
Not even just or. It's and.
and it's an and in the most derogatory of ways, and it is not a good feeling. So to hear that they're making this superhero who we've never heard of, who is this kung fu master, and based on doing my research, he's based on this character from the 70s, from when Kung Fu the TV show came out, and was sort of Marvel's attempt to recreate that kind of energy. It has all these racist caricature underpinnings, and so they're putting that on the big screen. Huge red flag for a lot of us, and I think that could be partially another reason why everybody is like very hesitant to embrace this movie. But I will say, when the trailers first came out, and I was like, oh, okay, it's the story's in San Francisco, like, oh, okay, it's funny, like, oh, okay, like the soundtrack is pretty dope, like it's got some like some hard beats and some rhyming, is like very contemporary. I'm not hearing a gong anywhere. Like that actually started to pique my interest, and then the reviews from the premiere and all the like the guest screenings came out, and this movie is like 99% fresh or something on Rotten Tomatoes. So I started to flip my earlier skepticism into some hype. So I was actually starting to get really into the movie. And there's lots of like PR articles about like representation and like a moment for Asian Americans and all that. I started to get swept up in it. So I saw it on Friday night. And I will say,
What a great cliffhanger.
Okay, so I'm not tripping, right?
I will say.
Oh wow, that is amazing. That is a god tier blue ball.
Yo, wait, right now,
DC hacked into our stream. DC hacked into our stream.
Do we think that he liked it or he didn't like it?
Did I get booted?
If we had to guess.
What the hell just happened?
Yo, Brian. Oh god. The
What
moment
just happened?
you hyped it up so much, and the moment you said you're about to say, and you cut off.
I completely froze.
Like you disconnected. Like the next word would have told us if you liked it or not.
Damn,
you did not get that next word.
That's some conspiracy stuff, man.
I know, man.
Your mouth, you were frozen.
They don't want you stirring up the masses on this, man.
I think some Trumpers are trying to like hack into my internet or something.
It's your COVID of detecting improper language and
You've been contact traced, bro.
negative thoughts.
Oh my goodness, Chris Christie's out to get me right now. So what was like the last thing you heard me say?
You were about to say something about your opinion.
Oh yeah.
Did you hear me say get yourself an N95 mask?
No.
Yeah, I guess yeah. So like bottom line is what I was saying. Is like go see this movie. Why like get an N95 mask, dudes. Like you're gonna go out. You like we go see Marvel movies. This is our thing. Go see it. It's good. It's like it addressed all my like worst fears in positive ways. It's better than Black Widow. There's like some really interesting things going on in the movie. It's not like the greatest thing ever, but we don't need it to be that. And really, the clincher for me in the movie is the villain. And the villain, uh, and for those that don't know, this movie kind of the origins of Shang Chi is that back in the 70s, like his dad is the Mandarin or whatever, and the Mandarin, also another racist character. They completely flip that around in the movie, and the dad is played by this Hong Kong megastar named Tony Leung, who I wasn't really familiar with, but damn, this guy is magnetic on screen and really makes this movie what it is. So I'll say that from an Asian American standpoint, also for the people that are looking for it, there's some very interesting ideas running through the movie about assimilation, being ashamed of like who you are, and part of that goes to what I was saying earlier about being called Bruce Lee and stuff. You start being ashamed for being Asian, right? Because that kind of stuff happens. But then I think a lot of people probably disconnect from their racial identity for that reason. And the movie is kind of subtly suggesting that there's another way. So I think people looking for that kind of introspection about Asian American identity, it's in there. But it's a good time even if you're not looking for that, right? So yeah, go see it. Mask up.
Nice. Y'all got any questions for Brian?
I have one. So I may be the white guy on this episode of the pod.
And the Jewish guy.
And the Jewish guy.
Turns out we just got an exact replica of Mike.
Yeah, no. We've got a good mix on this pod. We don't need to, if it ain't broke, right?
But I mean, this is kind of the Knicks approach, right? We just kind of leveled up our weakest.
Yeah, y'all just signed Kemba Walker on a 2-year, $18 million deal.
That's what we did.
So one of my things with MCU, like movies in particular, is and y'all have talked about it a bit in the past, just sort of the breaking the third wall element to sort of address like, oh, haha, we're in the land of tropes and we're just going to sort of wink, wink and nod and get on with the rest of the program here. My worry, especially after listening to y'all talk about your worries about Shang-Chi in the first place, is that how they're going to address the whole, hey, here's your movie, and guess what? It's martial arts again.
Yeah, I mean, it's so like that was also a big worry for me, right? Like this is just their diversity play, but at the same time a play to get the dollars out in China. And I'm Filipino, so like none of that appeals to me. And to some degree, yes, I totally agree. This is kind of pandering, but at the same time, you have like Asian Americans in front of the camera and behind the camera. They're it's Asian Americans who directed it, who wrote it, and the way that it was put together, like even the soundtrack, they're basically trying to do for Asian Americans what Black Panther did, right? And like having a soundtrack that's all Asian American stuff. So in that regard, I think it works, but it's still capitalism. We still know this is corporate. This is a corporate version of addressing the moment where we are right now, and like we need diversity. So here's your Black Panther movie. Here's your Captain Marvel movie. Now here's your Shang-Chi movie. I think that's still in play ultimately, but I think the product is good enough that I'm okay with that. But it, that's kind of the sucky part of the reality that we live in, called America.
Savon, any questions?
Yeah, well, one thing I still want to kind of leave that thread y'all just had open a little bit. What I still try to keep reminding myself with these movies is that showcasing what all kinds of talent looks like in a movie that, maybe I'm not in a position to say whether or not you still felt like Shang-Chi was ultimately like a stereotypical storyline or its presentation, but the fact that even these, you don't have to hold these movies to these unrealistic standards, and you shouldn't do that because it's something that's headed by a not predominantly white cast. You can have a movie that's all headed by creative black people and it be mediocre, and that's okay. Or that's Asian, or that's whatever, and that's okay. You don't need to have it be, oh, this is the movie we're doing once for this group. Oh, hope it does well. Otherwise, we're not doing it again. But it is a good sign because, okay, you know that these movies can work, bet. Now you just have a chance to maybe showcase this talent in other contexts and maybe do a story that's a bit more, less derived or more original. So the fact that it's getting good reviews, that in itself is a good sign. And I try to take that as like a good thing in the aggregate, even though it is all, you're right, corporate. But even the non-racial movies are corporate. It's just you playing a slightly, you're just valuing different stuff. But
yeah.
My question, but
Go
that was
ahead.
just one thread. My question about the movie, Fin Fang Foom, does that mean anything to you?
Of course, Fing Fang Foom means something to me. But,
No, like not spoilers,
does it
and not
have to
like you don't
mean
have to spoil
something
anything
in the
because I haven't seen
movie?
it. Does it mean something in the movie? That's kind of like a comics question I have.
No. I'll just flat out say it. No, it doesn't.
Okay,
And
all right.
and I've read some interviews with the directors and stuff, and that was very conscious on their part as well, to stray away from Fing Fang Foom. So there's some interesting stuff, right? Like you've all seen the trailer, like yeah. So they address these things in a different way. Uh, and I totally agree with you, Savon. Like we should not be pinning our hopes for racial justice on a bunch of Marvel movies, and that yeah, and on Hollywood even. But let's accept the mediocrity. They're gonna make this consumer friendly corporate based media, and that's totally cool. But ultimately, there's some bigger things at play in the world that we don't need movies to do that for us.
So you called it this mediocrity in general, but like it sounds like this movie itself was actually, it was fun, it was good, it was well put together. Like you're 100% recommending people go see it. So
Yeah.
that's cool. I mean, yeah, like I'm kind of hyped for it. Maybe I'll try and find some time next weekend to get an early showing or something like that. It'll be less crowded. Dude, Texas is such a hot spot. I don't know, man. Like it's a little worrisome.
How are the fight scenes?
Oh, the fight scenes are good, man. They're actually, that's a real high point, right? So rather, they didn't run from the kung fu stuff, right? They leaned into it, and they're good. I think the fight scenes in this are way better than most Marvel movies.
That's good. How can you have a kung fu movie with like bad
Exactly.
fight scenes, right? Like that's gonna just let it down 100%.
Exactly.
So.
Like
It's
most Marvel movies,
that.
the hand to hand combat gets a little muddied. In this, I think is very sleek and clean. You really understand what's going on, and they look good. It looks like fight ballet, which is how kung fu movies should be.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, normally I don't get hyped for trailers, and I try not really to watch any of the trailers for this movie as my usual policy. But the few bits I did see, I saw bits of the choreography and them fighting, and I was like, oh, there aren't like a lot of cuts. I immediately noticed there just weren't a lot of cuts, and that to me was a really good sign because anytime you see a lot of cuts, I'm like, all right, this is going to be some nonsense. Well, I don't, yeah, to your point, it's just going to be some nonsense, but
Yeah.
I'm glad that seems to hold true in the movie.
Yeah, when you see all the cuts, you know they're hiding stuff. This, they're trying to put it on display.
Nice. Let's go ahead and move it on. So if you're out there and listening and excited about Shang-Chi, Brian says, hey, your excitement is well warranted. And if you're skeptical about the movie, Brian says, give it a try. Go see it. He's not even saying give it a try. He's saying go see it 100%.
Go see it.
Yeah. Marvel, this is our first recording in a little bit, and we haven't really had a chance to talk about What If. I know many of our listeners are watching. We've been watching. So we thought we'd kind of check in around the halfway point here. We've had four episodes so far, with a few more to come. So I wanted to ask you guys what you think so far. Will, I'm going to have you go first. What are you thinking so far of the series?
Cool. So I just want to start off by saying I am currently representing for all the casuals across the world, right? Like, I've seen some of the MCU movies, I've seen some of the TV content, but most of my intricate knowledge of the MCU comes from listening to y'all, and not from actually consuming the base content. Uh,
Our versions
so
are better.
Yeah. Also, for those of you listening, this is going to have spoilers in it. So if you haven't watched the first 4 episodes, feel free to, pause, go watch it, come back to us and hear Katz's take.
Which is this. I think that the length of 35 minute spots felt just right to me, because it's basically saying, let's take a whole movie concept, animate it, condense it, and just go over like the fine points of the plot so that you get this sort of like sense of an alternate plot line from an alternate universe. I think that's pretty sick. I think it's cool that it's not episodic and that each piece is standalone. I've not read a single comic in my life, so I have no idea who this sort of narrator entity is. But Savon, I assume that you know, but like, this guy seems super pointless to me. Like he just is there and is creepy and is like, this is another universe. Like, you don't need this show doesn't need a narrator. But yeah, that those are my baseline takes, I think.
So, Brian, did you feel the same way that Will did about the timing and how the Watcher is kind of being used?
Well, I'm pretty familiar with the What If comics, which I think have some of the best stories in all of Marvel Comics, to be honest. It's interesting for me to hear you say that about Uatu, the Watcher, because I've always just accepted him as part of the Marvel universe. So yeah, I could definitely see how that could be off-putting to people. But I'm really digging What If so far. I think going the animated route is great for the MCU, and just having this sandbox to play with of like, well, what if we move the pieces around and switch things up a little bit? What would it look like? And we're seeing that in a lot of different varieties in the show right now. They can go really silly with it and really fun, but they can also go really dark, in ways that I don't think the continuity of the regular MCU allows for. So it's been good so far.
Nice. And did you feel like the timing worked, kind of the format, right? It's fairly short. I mean, for a Marvel series, a lot of times they put out, 45 minutes to an hour episodes. Did you feel like the shorter episodes are working for you?
I think it's a lot of story. There can be a lot of story to cram into those 30 or 35-minute episodes. So I think some of the storytelling, takes a hit because of those constraints. But that was also true in the comic books too. Like a what if comic or what if story was only one issue of a comic, and that's about 25 pages. So I remember seeing similar issues in those issues.
Savon.
I mean, I'm absolutely loving it. I've been a proponent, and I've been very. What? No, I've been very vocal. But I was vocal about What If from the beginning. I was very hyped about it. I've always been a fan of animation and what animation lets you do with creativity and storytelling. As much as we love having our favorite actors on screen and all that, special effects budgets, actors, trying to get them hired, all that, and being limited to real life people limits what you can do, especially in Marvel that just has such creative, off the wall concepts. And them finally not being torn to that really let them have a lot of fun. I agree. I think them having to fit so much story in the period can have, like, that's probably the biggest con. I think it's gotten better episode by episode with that. I think you really felt it in episode 1. And to me, the pacing felt like it got continuously better. But to me, being able to just have Peggy be, just jacked as hell and just do all these ridiculous fight moves that you just couldn't practically do with a person lets you just show off what the characters really are in their comics forms, which I love the movies, but you're limited with real life people. I'm loving it. The animation, the tone shifts. I'm enjoying this more than a lot of the movies and like most of the TV shows keep it a buck.
Do you have a favorite episode so far?
I'm torn between I won't spoil it, but like the one if the mightiest heroes had fallen, episode 3. I'm torn between that one and the Doctor Strange one of episode 4. The Doctor Strange one had the best animation by a long shot, but the antagonist and mystery in 3 was just dope.
Savon, knowing how much you're into animation, how much you like this series, I think the best what if that you would just blow your mind and that you would be all about is called Into the Spideyverse. You should check that out,
dude. Oh my
Daddy.
goodness! Oh man, I was like, "Where's he going with this?" Like, okay,
Fair enough. Did you guys all feel like 3 and 4 were the stronger, or Will and Brian, did you feel like 3 and 4 were the strongest episodes? I definitely felt like 4 was the strongest one so far and enjoyed that from start to finish. I never felt bored. I never felt like, oh, this wasn't needed or there's something confusing here. Like it was all, to me, it just weaved everything together so well and was also still a great what if because of how it changed his personality and his character compared to the movies.
Which one was the Heroes Have Fallen?
3.
I really liked 4. I thought the Doctor Strange piece was excellent. I hadn't seen the movie, so like a lot of the sort of tie-ins sort of went over my head, but there was enough of a trail of breadcrumbs there for me to sort of not get lost. And yeah, I mean the animation and like the dark elements of this. Can I just say I don't mean to go off the rails here, but is Cthulhu like within the canon of the MCU?
So I can answer that one maybe. So I don't think that's meant to be Cthulhu, but there's a character who's generally a Doctor Strange villain called Shuma Gorath, who is like a tentacle eyeball monster. Have you ever played Marvel vs. Capcom, the old arcade game?
Oh yeah.
His character is in it. If you ever played it, there was a tentacle eye monster that was Shuma Gorath, who is a Doctor Strange villain. I think that's what they were going for, but good question.
But
he is meant to be an interdimensional Cthulhu-esque beast, though. So,
because that's like one of the few, like him and the Watcher, are like the only things that were like made multiple appearances, really.
Right. Because in the Captain Carter episode, they also fight a tentacled monster. Is it the same one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you look up Shuma Gorath, you'll see exactly what I mean. I think that's the character.
Interesting. This whole like Cthulhu like angle. I feel like the What If series seems to be playing it up more. I wonder if that's a direction that they want to go in for the MCU, for the greater MCU.
Nice.
He's like a Dormammu level character, so.
Oh.
Which Doctor Strange mentions in that What If episode, which was another like, whoa, Dormammu. Like I could never imagine that being part of the MCU.
Mm-hmm. Quick thing about What If, though, I'll say that I've enjoyed. I think we all agree 3 and 4 are the best ones overall. But I really want to appreciate the second one. That was Chadwick Boseman's last role as Black Panther. Not because I thought it was the best one, but I like that they have some that are still really lighthearted and don't take themselves too seriously. Like, was it kind of silly to just see Thanos just like cracking jokes and whatnot? It's like, yeah, but also that was like the levity and tone shift I didn't realize I needed. They could have totally have made that story way more serious and dire, and the conflict is serious, but it's still so lighthearted and fun. And I'm glad that that was a very clear, intentional story direction choice, just based on how the others have gone. So even though I'm glad we're getting the serious stuff, it's like these really serious high consequences, I still like a little bit of just, hey, these are comic characters, and just let them just have fun and do their thing.
Oh yeah.
So I'm appreciating the tone variety.
So that takes us to our next question, which is, what's been your favorite transposition or kind of switcheroo that they've pulled on us? For me, really enjoyed. Obviously, I really enjoyed that last one with Doctor Strange and how they sort of changed his character and how he was fighting for Christine and how you kind of got to know him as like a sympathetic character rather than kind of just a jerkhole. But the T'Challa Peter Quill switch was probably the most fascinating because that was such a huge like change in how Peter Quill or how Star-Lord was sort of acting, right? He wasn't out for himself. He was doing it in a much more like magnanimous, kingly way. But still obviously, right, like assembling his team and pulling them together. And so the theme was still the same, but the way that they did it was just so completely unexpected for me that I thought that was a cool flip. Will, did you have a favorite switch that you've seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick one, it would definitely be T'Challa as Star Lord.
Nice.
I thought that was really sick. I'm not gonna lie, like for whatever reason, the latter portions of that episode like got me choking up a little bit. I don't know. It was weird. Like it probably shouldn't have, and like it was definitely was not as like thought provoking as the darker ones. But like I thought it was a really cool thing. I thought it was like funny how they sort of flipped the whole like Star Lord versus dude's actual name thing on its head. Uh, I thought that was like a sort of clever little subtle dig that I actually did perceive, which was cool. Yeah, I thought it was super rad.
Nice, Brian.
Yeah, I think the best episode was obviously, or it was obviously the last two, but the best switcheroo I think was with Captain Carter, with Agent Peggy Carter, right? And she's like one of the unsung heroes of the MCU, even though her TV show Agent Carter, if you haven't seen it, probably top 3 MCU TV shows. Um, great character, uh and if you think about it, in that whole Captain America lore, she makes perfect sense for the super soldier serum, as opposed to Steve Rogers, who's just like this guy determined but really no use, ultimately. Whereas Agent Carter, very capable at everything she does already, plus has the same drive as Steve Rogers. So putting her into those shoes, to me, made logical sense. And then we get to see how much better she is at being Captain Carter than Steve Rogers was at being Captain America in the first Avenger movie. Right? Like her fight scenes were just off the charts incredible, like in the way that she was
Brutal.
wielding the shield, everything.
Mm.
She's already built for this, you know. So I was glad to see Peggy Carter get her due in that episode.
Mm-hmm. And Steve is like 50s Iron, as World War II Iron Man was also like, because
Oh, that was amazing.
I like that they gave Peggy her flowers, but still didn't shun Steve in the process. It's like, hey, you still do the whole he's worthy and is a worthy man because he's in the suit, but no one else can do it like he does it. I'm like, all right, I like that. I was a fan of that.
Oh yeah, and when they were
Nice.
teaming up against the
Oh my
Cthulhu
goodness,
monster,
I was
yeah.
swooning.
Mm.
I was
Oh, and
just
she
like,
picked
oh,
up the
this is
sword. Oh, forget about it, man.
All right. Last question or last kind of wrap up here. So, the series has gone for 4 episodes now. Is the animated medium the right choice here? Savon, I think we know how you feel. Brian, Will, is this the way that it should be? Should we have seen a live action version of this? Should they have tried to do like a whole movie of this? Like, is this format really working for you, having it being animated? Brian, start us off.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Savant said before, animation allows you to take all the content into weird places, and this What If series is going into some weird places. That especially with the Doctor Strange episode, right? Like all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't hit as hard in live action because I don't think our special effects have like caught up to those ideas to make them really feel impactful. But in an animated setting, it totally works, right? We can suspend more disbelief and just accept it, and then take it to these weird things like Uatu as a character. That doesn't look good live action. Like a giant white bald guy floating in outer space, like hovering in the background over stuff. That's just weird, man. That's like like Butterbean hanging out behind you, like, oh, like, what are you doing? And then you got the fight scenes, right? Like, not all the not all the on-screen live action talent can pull off these kind of fight scenes, and not all the stunt people can either, right? There are just things that are humanly impossible to do when dealing with superheroes. So seeing Peggy Carter or Captain Carter do her thing, incredible. Even Black Widow in the back of the van when she gets picked up, fighting off the goons. Like, all of that stuff was just spot on, and animation allows for that.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that still pretty creepy having this Watcher Man just in the stars. Like, if I just looked up and saw this like stain across the sky of like this weird old dude with glowy eyes, I don't think I'd react positively. I I think I'd go back inside. But I think the other thing I'd say is just that it seems so impracticable to like do this with live action. Like, certainly the way they've done it. Like, maybe you could do a movie of like one of these things, maybe two of them, but to make this like a whole series to me seems like a lot more difficult to actually put together, as opposed to just having a bunch of voiceover work and then having it sort of all go down in like the animation sphere. Because these are like, they got the people's voices, right? Like, this is not just like some like, oh, this is someone who sounds like Scarlett Johansson. Like, no, this is like Scarlett Johansson is like doing the Black Widow thing, isn't she?
I think for her, actually, no.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For some
Well,
of
that's the
them,
one that
yes,
There's a
was-
couple of
mix.
them that they missed out on.
It's a mix, but like for the top, like it was definitely Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. It's a mix. I'll have to check the whatchamacallit.
I don't think they got Chris Evans.
Cumberbatch.
It was definitely Benedict Cumberbatch. I think
Was
they
it?
missed Chris Evans. I think they missed Dave
They didn't get
Bautista.
Drax. Yeah.
But
But
for
they
the
got-
most
they got
part,
a
they
number
got
of
them
them.
all.
Still, it's at least a healthy mix, right?
Yeah.
And so to like get, and if you weren't doing it animated, you know what, you would actually need to get the real people, even for the voices, right? So I think the overall point still stands. Like, I don't know how else you really could do it on this level without really burning through the budget in a way that probably doesn't make sense, because I do think that this What If series, like, I am not the intended audience, right? Y'all are, right? Like, this is something that is really for people who are like consuming the MCU on a level that is like very involved. This is not like Iron Man 5.
It's coming though. Iron
Uh-huh.
Man 5.
Hey, not every short story needs to be a novel,
Yeah. So I think that actually is why, like, I want to kind of reject my own question about the animated part. It's not that I have a problem with the animated part, but for a number of the episodes, I've actually felt like the direction they've chosen, where they're kind of opening up a bunch of can of worms and leaving them really open-ended. So I feel like for the first three, especially, they just sort of left it open as like, well, we're not really going to conclude this thing. Like, there's sort of an ending to the thing, to the episode, but it didn't feel like it actually concluded. They just sort of left it as like, well, maybe other things will happen as a result. Like when Peter Quill is like sweeping up the diner at the end or wherever he's at, and it's like, well, now he has more of a role to play somewhere on later down the line. But given that this is like kind of this weird like ensemble series, right? It's not just one continuous serialized series. It just felt like everything up until the fourth one to me felt a little bit inconsequential. It felt kind of unimportant. And I would rather, if you're just going to give us, one-shot stories over and over or whatever, like, I want those stories to be self-contained and to have a beginning, middle, and end. And it sometimes felt like there wasn't an end. And I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but I was sort of lukewarm on that aspect of the first few series.
I think it's intentional. That was something that the What If comics did as well. These are just meant to be snapshots into hypotheticals. So you trying to go deep into it after that, that's an entirely new series at that point. Like, that's super, super in-depth. So, part of the What If is, like the Star-Lord thing. Like, yeah, ego is never destroyed. So the What If might legit just be he wins, and that's it. The only thing I think that is worth noting about if there's going to be any continuity is, and this might answer your question about the character, Katz, about like, Uatu. he's called the Watcher. A theme in the comics and in certain games he's appeared in too is that he's torn between his oath of being a Watcher and does he do something greater beyond that, or does he interfere? They hinted at that a little bit in the Doctor Strange episode because he actually talked to him. Normally he doesn't even do that. So I think Wes, I think it's a mix of, they're not going to always give you a conclusion, and that's okay, but they seem to be leaning, like, Uatu has a role to play, I think. He's a narrator, but also he would be someone who would maybe break his oath for a larger cause if that's something that the show decides to even go in that direction. Would it do multiple seasons? Probably.
Yeah, but just because it's intentional doesn't mean that I enjoyed it, right? Like, I understand it's intentional, they're leaving these open, but to me, if you're going to make these like really short 35-minute bottle episodes, like, keep it in the bottle, right? Like, wrap it up. Let's like have these stories be cool and like enjoyable, and then like let's move on, you know?
But I think they do want to leave it open because they might revisit the same one shot and make it a two shot, you know what I mean, in a later episode or in a later season. And that's kind of my feeling as to a lot of these. It seems like they want to have that flexibility, and I feel like it's inevitable that we do revisit some of these, particularly the Doctor Strange one. And you know, that might feel like the most self-contained, but it actually, to me, felt like that was the one that's really ripe for revisiting, even in the live action stuff. Like, there's a dark Doctor Strange out there trapped in a little like crystal cage. What's going to happen when somebody lets him out?
Can I just ask a follow-up question on this Watcher's backstory? Because like you're talking about this oath, and as someone who's totally new to this, this man took an oath to do nothing and just like observe everything. What? As
Are you
opposed
going to
to
ask
what?
how you can take the same oath?
No. Like, as opposed to what? Like, how is that? It's like, oh, like, but do I want to be something more, like, more than what? Just like someone who's like forced to watch all of existence unfold forever. Like that. It just, can you help me get inside the head of the Watcher?
The giant head.
You're describing
Savon.
Court, or the friend who takes notes, but you're not contributing to the conversation. You're just there to scribe and take notes. But you're torn between, do you just, whatever's happening. Like, your job is just to take notes, and you decide, okay, should I participate to make the notes better, or am I just going to stick to only taking notes, just scribing what everyone else says? It's basically just being the scribe, but for existence.
To whom was this oath made?
I mean, you have to watch more. I mean, that's like an in-depth comics thing. Depends on how you interpret the character. Like, that's kind of like, there's no definitive answer. We'll see what the direction the show takes in it. He might answer to someone, maybe he does. But the whole oath we won't interfere thing, I mean, Eternals is visiting that too, so it's not a new concept in Marvel. So we'll see I'm hoping they give more explanation. I don't know yet, because they're new to introducing them.
They took an oath to not interfere so that later on they can break the oath. I think that's what is happening here.
Yeah. They took the oath for dramatic tension.
Yeah, everybody got an oath, and it's like, oh, someone got an oath. Oh, my son definitely is gonna have his oath challenged. Otherwise, what's the point of having an oath? That's the oldest trope in the book.
I've just been.
I think he's just now lampooning our podcast at this point. All right. So, you guys have anything last things to say, or should we wrap up there?
What if that you want to see?
Yeah, I don't even know what's coming down. I haven't even looked ahead. But I would think it'd be cool to see some what ifs, like, around some of the smaller characters, not some of the huge characters, and just to kind of see like what those things would look like. So even if it's like Phil Coulson or just some more of the supporting characters, or like Wong, and like how those things could be changed and how their perspectives of the events that happened, throughout the 4 phases could be a little bit different.
Oh yeah, I missed Phil Coulson. It was good to hear him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, I would love if there was like a rocket one shot where he doesn't join Star-Lord and goes and does his own thing, whatever that might be. I think that would be pretty cool.
The artwork has that one that's still of there's one of Gamora with the Thanos armor that looks interesting, and it'll probably be cool. but there's one that's looks like it's Ultron with the Vision body and a bunch of Infinity Stones. Like in the artwork on the Disney Plus, you can see they show a bunch of characters. I'm hyped for that because that just sounds so brokenly OP. It's just like, all right, cool. What's the conflict here? I want to see how this goes down.
Well, we'll revisit What If when it concludes. They've got a few more episodes coming. And so far we've been liking it. If you haven't been watching What If, highly recommend it. I've recommended it to a couple of friends, who teach with me at school, and they've really enjoyed it as well. So for most people, I think whether you're really into it, like Brian and Savon and me, or whether you're a little bit more casual, like Will, there is something in it for everyone, and they're quick, they're short, kind of cool just to watch, after dinner or something like that, and move on. So that'll close us out. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter @confidently_pod. We love the comments. We love to interact. Send us some DMs, but keep it PG. We don't want to see any pictures of things that maybe we shouldn't see.
Whoa.
And then go visit our sponsors. All of the sponsors that we've had over the years, like Nintendo, who we had only for about 10 minutes. Thanks, friends. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And then I started looking around and I started asking myself, am I really about to drop like 350 on a road? And
Ooh.
Damn.
God damn.
Yo.
Damn.
It was funny.
Worth it.
You know what? It was funny.
Hugh
I
Hefner.
I even talked to my mom. I was like, hey, yo, mom, is this just a stupid thing to spend money on? And you know what she told me? She said, it's not stupid if it's something that you want to get for yourself.
Wow. What a mom. What a mom.
Like, what else? She lives the philosophy of, be responsible, but also there's no point of saving money if you're not going to treat yourself to things. Otherwise, what's the point?
I have this one article of clothing that is literally was $350 that was a similar I want to get it for me thing. It's these.
You got that same sock that I got?
Yeah, I like how you left out which article it was.